Welcome. Today's King Philip Regional Review is brought to you live. I have three guests with me today. I have the elementary school superintendents from the towns of Plainville, Norfolk, and Wrentham. And so David Reich, Ingrid Alardi, and Alan Cameron are here today. And we're here to talk with you a little bit about the collaboration that's been going on between all four of these school districts. I think many people realize that their students go to an elementary district and then go to a secondary district, but they don't necessarily realize how much collaboration happens between those two districts as they transition their way through. And so there is a lot going on behind the scenes, and I thought it would be nice for our viewers at home to understand a little bit about what's happening and how that works. And so I thought it might be good to begin by asking each of our superintendents to tell us a little bit about their background and what brought them to the districts that they're at right now. And so I'll turn to my left and ask Alan to begin by maybe sharing a little bit about what brought you to Wrentham.
Sure. Thanks, Paul. So it's great to be here. So I was a teacher in Connecticut, and my wife and I decided to move up to Massachusetts when we were pregnant with our first son, because she's from Massachusetts. And that led me to a grad program at Boston College, assistant principal and counselor in Brookline, and then principal and acting assistant superintendent in Westwood prior to becoming the superintendent in Wrentham. I've been in Wrentham now this is my 6th year.
Fantastic. Well, you've hit a few different districts then in
Yes.
Massachusetts before making it over to Wrentham.
That's right.
Great.
They've all been great.
And Dr. Lottie.
So I grew up in Massachusetts and started in education teaching first grade in the Framingham Public Schools. And I was there for probably 6 years. From there went to an assistant principalship in Boxford, Massachusetts, and was there for 4 years, and then a principal in Foxborough for 10. Love early childhood, love working with the younger students. Norfolk was a perfect district and great fit for me. So I've been here, this will be my 7th year.
Fantastic. And David, you started with Rhode Island, correct?
I started in Rhode Island. I'm just a tad older than the colleagues here at the table. Actually, this is the beginning of my 45th year in education.
Oh, wow.
Wow,
Began too as a first grade teacher many years ago in West Warwick, Rhode Island, and spent had a 32-year career in West Warwick as a teacher, as elementary, middle school principal, assistant superintendent, and then saw the opportunity to come to Plainville, to an elementary district where I started my career, and it's been a great situation. It's a great community, and I've enjoyed every minute of the 12 years that I've been there.
Fantastic. So first grade. I actually started in 2nd grade. Alan, did you have that elementary experience?
I did, but old 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, no.
So you're the oldie there. Okay,
Yes.
So at one point in time, we were all there with the
Yes.
younger children,
Yes.
and you are still there.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things I think I miss sometimes is that some of those days when you were just not going as well as you'd like, and you kind of just needed to decompress, it was always nice to kind of get into an elementary classroom and visit the little ones. They always made me feel better. And I don't have that
Definitely
visit
true.
right now. I'm just going to have to drive over to your district. Exactly. So, as I said earlier, one of the things that I wanted to talk about today is the fact that the 4 districts are doing a lot of collaboration together. And I thought that the people at home may not realize just how much of that collaboration is going on behind the scenes, and it might be nice for us to share a little bit about that. And I think maybe the longest running collaboration has really been more around curriculum and instruction and our services such as special education. And so I'm going to turn to each of you to maybe share a little bit about your experiences. And you've been doing this longer than me. This is only my 2nd year at King Philip, and you had that collaboration going before I arrived. And so maybe we'll start at the other end of the table. David, share a little bit about how that started and what's been going on with that.
I know the area of special education is something I think that the 4 superintendents have talked about for a number of years. But I think it really came together about 3 years ago when we said it was really time to get some of our staff involved. And so we had representatives, as I recall, representatives of school committee, superintendents, other administrators who came together and said it's really time to start to put some effort into this to make sure that our special needs kids are treated well and get the education they deserve and to get it in a coordinated effort from when they enter could be 3 or 4 years of age till age 22. And I think I'm very pleased at the work that we've done, in particular these last few years, to really move that along, I think, in a quality way.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that we've really made a commitment over the last, I would say, 4 or 5 years to start looking at the educational system as one system, even though it may be 2 districts. And our kids from pre-K through age 22, sometimes for you, and really trying to strengthen that vertical articulation of curriculum so that kids' experience, as Dave said, is cumulative and it builds over time. And one of the areas that we did look at was putting together that regional special education steering committee to make sure that our resources and our programs aligned, that kids were prepared and had common experiences from our 6th grades coming into the 7th grade, and really try to strengthen that partnership. So we did have a committee with membership from all districts to work on that. We also really tried to identify areas where we might need additional professional development and training, and we've shared resources for that to provide that in a consistent way so that our teachers are getting the same message and they're getting the same supports in order to provide that high quality programming.
I was going to mention the professional development part. That's something that's been very beneficial to my faculty and staff for sure, that we've find opportunities for the 4 districts to get together and provide those opportunities for learning for our folks, and also getting them together. I think there's some benefit from the mingling among the faculty and staff of the 4 districts. And the other part that's been, I think, really beneficial for me is collaborating with the 3 of you. It's been helped me develop as a leader, learning from your experiences and taking advantage of some of the lessons that you might have learned the hard way, and maybe I can try to avoid it, although oftentimes I run headfirst into this problem myself too. But knowing you're there to help me and to, we can commiserate and we can set goals together, and all that's been really beneficial.
Well, I think when we look at roles in districts, we recognize that there are some roles that there are many people who serve in them. There are maybe 3 or 4 second grade teachers who can collaborate and chat with each other, but as a superintendent, you're a singleton in your district, and sometimes it's just nice to be able to pick up that phone when you're having that oh no moment. What am I going to do about this one? And share it with one of your colleagues and get some sage advice about where to go next with it. So I couldn't agree more. That's been a real asset, I know that I would say for myself as well. And so maybe we could talk a little bit about some of the shared professional development that we've been doing as well. I think one great example was when Norfolk hosted a speaker last year to talk with our special education staff around IEP writing. For our viewers at home, we talked earlier about special education coordination, but the individual education program is the document that's generated, and we create an annual document that really outlines the services to be provided to a student who is receiving special education services. And so when those documents are consistent, it means that the student's education will be more consistent. And so I know that Ingrid, you were able to sponsor that. And
we ran a dinner series with Alan Bloom, and it was around how to write a standards referenced IEP. So we're all working off the same state frameworks and how to write that IEP in a way that allows children to work at their own rate towards mastering the state standards, and that it's aligned again across the 4 districts. So that was really well attended. The other one of the other things that we offered, I think it was last year, was a behavioral health dinner series, and that was open to all 4 districts. We had over 80 staff members from collaboratively combined attend that, and that was 3 nights looking at supporting children with anxiety, with behavioral challenges, childhood depression, which is we're seeing an increase across the state and across all of our districts in children that are struggling with behavioral health challenges. So that was really well attended, and it was a great series. And I think by partnering, we've been able to fund bringing in top tier presenters with really rich content knowledge. So they've been very powerful sessions.
May I piggyback on that?
Absolutely,
so,
please.
We discussed the professional development opportunities for our faculty and staff, and those have been great. I think it's important to acknowledge the great professional development that we were able to have for ourselves and for our administrators around equity and excellence that we did this summer. I know that's been something that's a shared goal for us as districts, and also for the state, working to close achievement gaps and help all students meet them where they are and help them to have great experiences in school. And we were able to get some excellent facilitators for that professional development, and it was a real great opportunity for us to identify a clear priority need that we all have and do some shared work on that. And I thought that was very good.
And to elaborate on that a little bit further, that was actually 4 full days of professional development, 2 at the end of June and 2 in middle of August, where each district's admin team came together. And so I think there were 24 of us all together, and Norfolk hosted that, which was great. And the presenters came in, and we had those 4 full days for us to work on that topic and to really delve more deeply into it. I know for me it was an opportunity to be with my own team and to talk more about these issues and how they impact us at the middle and high school level, but it was also an opportunity to talk with the other districts and their administrators to kind of get that feeling of what's going on from preschool all the way through. And I think those kinds of opportunities are wonderful.
And I think the administrators really enjoyed that partnership, working across districts, and we're interested in continuing that. So we do have that evening book study series that we're continuing that leadership work with that full team, and pretty much everybody is participating in that.
Oh, that's great.
Exactly, yes. All 4 districts this year will be doing that. And if we want to talk again about professional development and how we've tailored that for the leadership team, I think we could even go back a little bit further to last fall when we had the one-day, I guess retreat would be the best term for it, where the administrators from central office as well as our special education directors all came together. Perhaps you'd like to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that was part of our steering committee's goal in terms of aligning those special education services and programs across districts. And I thought one of the best things that came out of that was that we worked on developing a shared vision for special education that we all embrace regionally, and also a shared definition of what a free and appropriate public education meant. So that helped us in terms of having those guiding statements in terms of decision making and program development. So I thought that was very good.
And I think as I reflect on the work, especially of the last few years, I think we're in a much better position where instead of fitting students into programs, we're realizing the need to adjust programs to meet the needs of kids. And I think we're doing a better job because we're learning from each other.
Exactly. The I is individualized in that IEP. And where each of your districts is smaller, it may sometimes be difficult to create that program when you only have 1 or 2 students that need those programs. But together, you bring in a much larger cohort, and that allows you, I think, some ability to share that. And it's my understanding, too, that both the Director of Student Services for KP and all of your special education directors are meeting quite frequently to talk about that programming. And so, Ingrid, when you were talking about the shared vision and some of the work that we were doing, one of the things you mentioned was the social emotional piece. And so that's something that I think we've all really embraced is looking at that, and so that we've been giving that a lot of attention. And so perhaps we can talk a little bit about the work that we've begun and are continuing to do around addressing social emotional concerns and issues.
And I mean, I think as I think about the work, I think we've all decided the best path to go in terms of that, but at the same time we've recognized the importance of staying in contact and having some commonality across the districts, respective of a particular program that you might choose. Because we recognize that all of the kids are going to matriculate to King Philip, and so we need to make sure that there's some type of alignment that occurs at the elementary level, and that kids will be able to move on with a set of skills into KP and continue to be successful there too.
And I'm not sure all of our viewers would understand about social emotional curriculum, and there's so much we can talk about with this topic, but perhaps we could begin by even sharing what it is that some of the elementary teachers do on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis with their students to try to help give them some tools and strategies so that they are able to navigate their feelings and emotions and behaviors as they move through school. So some of you are using some more organized curriculums, and if maybe you could give some examples of that.
Sure. So to help prepare students for the world, we need to make sure they leave us with academic knowledge and skills, but they also need to have social competency knowledge and skills as well. And an aspect of that is direct teaching on how they can engage with others in positive and productive ways. And there are a variety of resources out there that support that type of learning. And in Wrentham, we're using a responsive classroom is the format we use, and it's a lot of the principles are the same as used in other programs, but teachers in regular elementary classrooms provide direct instruction to students on pro-social behaviors and how to engage with others, how to self-regulate, how to be positive members of the community.
Fantastic. And you're using different programs in each of your districts, that's correct?
We are. Norfolk did a review of our social emotional learning curriculum last year. We've had for a number of years Open Circle, which is similar in many ways to Responsive Classroom. The teachers have Open Circle twice a week where they have class meetings. They proactively teach those social emotional skills, self-regulation, goal setting, conflict resolution, how to have healthy, productive relationships, all of those kinds of skills that kids are going to need to be able to navigate the middle school and also to navigate life. We, through the review process, determined that Open Circle still remains a really good fit for our primary grades. But with the number of issues and the challenges kids are facing with cyberbullying, texting, social media, we wanted something more robust for that addressed that topic more robustly in the upper grades. So we've adopted the Second Step program for grades 3 to 6, and we've adopted the Second Step anti-bullying curriculum K to 6. So that's a new implementation for us this year. And again, as Dave mentioned earlier, although we all have different programs, we're working to identify what are the common skills and expectations, regardless of the tools you're using to teach them, so that we're matriculating kids to grade 6 with a common set of competencies.
Exactly, and that is one of the points that I wanted to really bring out, is that regardless of the program that you're using, the skill set is pretty much the same. And so our teams are working behind the scenes to make sure that that is all clearly articulated, so that as they move to the middle school, our middle school staff knows the kinds of tools that these students have been exposed to and taught, and then they're able to help use them as they navigate toward adulthood.
Which is similar for academics. We have the standards, but we use different programs to teach the academic standards to the students. But the middle school folks know the skills that the students should come in with, regardless of how we get them there.
Exactly. And regardless of which community they come in with, our students are coming into middle school very, very well prepared for middle and high school with very high scores on the standardized tests and the skills that they need to be ready. I often, when I talk about things like the budget or I talk about the collaboration, I say that the elementary schools are really responsible for building the foundation, and you're building a very solid one, and then it's up to us to build the house that's going to keep them protected and sheltered for life.
There you go.
And so together we have a happy home for all of our kids to live in. So I want to build a little bit more about that social emotional piece. And so we talked specifically about the curriculum, but we know that our children's social emotional needs are growing larger than what we can simply address in a curriculum. The curriculum helps give all of our students some basic tools to navigate life, how to play well on the playground, make friends, and navigate those things. But we are seeing an uptick, I think we've all said that, in the kinds of issues that some of our students are facing. And so I know at the secondary level we're seeing it. We give a survey every 2 years, and we're seeing more of our students talk about anxiety and depression and those kinds of social emotional issues that we are concerned that our students are dealing with. But that's not just starting at the middle and high school. Those students are struggling with that at the elementary. And so if you could share a little bit about what some of the things you're seeing at the elementary, and then we can talk about how we're trying to address that together.
So certainly, I would say 10 years ago, as a superintendent, I would not have heard from an elementary principal about anxiety and depression. I'm not saying that it wasn't happening in families, but you typically didn't hear it. Now I think we recognize it more. We recognize that we have to play, as schools, we have to play a role in working with families and supporting families to address those types of things. So it is we're hearing it every day, and we're hearing situations with families going through many difficult times, and just trying to understand that a student who's coming in, a little boy or a little girl who's coming to school, living in a very difficult situation, we have to be mindful of that. We can't just expect them to leave that at the door and be able to come in and do reading and writing and math. That's just not a realistic expectation.
It's recognizing part of the that connects with the PD work we did this summer around equity. It's broadening our understanding of what our students come to school with, both positives and areas of concern, and making sure that we, as schools and districts, adjust the supports we provide so we give them what they need so they can succeed. And I think Dave described it very well. It's a way of broadening that perspective so we include all aspects of the student's life, because it's not reasonable to expect them to leave their issues at the door.
Right.
Exactly.
And I think, Paul, too, that's not just a local trend that we're seeing. It's
Exactly.
definitely a state and national trend.
And I'm so glad you pointed that out, because I do want our viewers to understand that.
The increase in children struggling with anxiety, depression, and all kinds of other behavioral health challenges is dramatically increasing. And I think one of the things that we really worked together and collaborated and partnered on is recognizing schools can only provide so much support. We do have counselors in schools. We've done a lot of trauma training for our teachers, but we find many of our families are also struggling to access outside resources, outside supports for children that are struggling at home or for other family members. And there's a critical shortage of mental health service providers in the state.
Very true.
Many of our kids, when they're struggling, if they go in, they're waiting 6 months to access counseling support. They're ending up in a hospital setting because there's no beds available. So one of the things that we really worked hard on last year was writing a mental health grant to try to bring in counseling and support services for students and families that go beyond what the school can provide. And I thought that was a great partner effort. The four of us worked together to write that grant. We were able to secure the grant it was about $350,000
Exactly.
To fund a full-time wellness director who is coordinating and leading a lot of these initiatives, helping put together and develop partnerships with local mental health agencies to bring services in, as well as the provision of one full-time and a part-time social worker who can provide supports and stabilization services to families at home. So I thought that was a great collaborative effort in recognizing, where we have gaps and needs that we're not able to fulfill within the schools alone.
Exactly. I think that was a fantastic show of collaboration, and I was so pleased to have the opportunity to work with you on all of that. For our viewers to understand, when we get a grant like that in and it's for the four communities, it becomes a little bit problematic to then manage the fiscal piece of that. Because King Philip is a regional district, it acts as its own municipality, so King Philip has taken on the role of the fiscal agent for that. But the services are to be provided to all four communities. And so it might be good at this point to talk a little bit about the details of what some of those services look like. And so we've hired Dorothy Pearl, Dot Pearl, to be the Director of Wellness, and we've begun to bring on the social workers as well. So perhaps you would each share a little bit about your vision of how you see those people helping the districts over the next year or so.
Two things that are happening right now that I think very beneficial. One is Dot's looking at the homework that's being given in at least elementary. I'm not sure about middle and high where we're going to go with that, but I think that's an excellent opportunity for us to look at what we're doing to see if it's best practice or if there are changes we need to make. And then the second one is how she's looking at wellness supports for faculty and staff members and help them build resilience and help them deal with some of the stresses of the job. Both great things.
Yeah.
Yes.
She did a lot of work around that over the summer.
Yes, exactly.
I know when we met with her recently, I think we each learned a lot about the region, things that we weren't aware of.
Exactly.
And I know I have her scheduled to come and meet next week with my administrative team, so I think that will be another great learning experience. I think she'll learn from us, and I think we'll learn a great deal from her too in terms of that.
We wrote a goal into our new strategic plan that we're finalizing for social emotional learning, and Dot came in and joined our administrative team and really helped us to craft that goal in a way that is going to be able to pinpoint the needs of our students and to be a way that's measurable for us to see the kinds of outcomes that we're hoping to see with that. She's also been incredibly instrumental in working with our Healthy KP Coalition. And for anyone who's been following these KP regional reviews, they know that the previous show that we filmed, we talked specifically about the work that Healthy KP was doing. And Dot, now that she's been on board for the four districts, has come on to help with that tremendously. Now, we only have a couple of minutes remaining, but I think in the time that we have left, maybe we could talk a couple of minutes about the social worker too, and why that's kind of a unique position, different than what we already have as far as school services go. So.
So she started yesterday. But the hope with the social worker is our counselors and supports in school can provide counseling to help children access their education. But that's limited in terms of what some of our children and families need. And the goal with the social worker is she is an independent contractor, so her hours are flexible. For families that may be really struggling or unable to access outside counseling supports or crisis services, she can provide that in-home counseling. It can be in the afternoons or evenings or weekends or in a community-based location, and help families access other community and other departmental services that they may be eligible for. So between each of the 4 districts, we will have a referral process in place, whether it's through our own crisis teams, our mental health teams, to make referrals, and then Meredith can go out into the home and work with families around getting supports and accessing services for children and for other members of the household. So we're excited about that.
And there may be a few families per district,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, those are families that wouldn't have received that level of support had
Exactly.
we not been able to ascertain that through the grants.
And we know that when they're having that kind of crisis at home, that kind of
Impacts
issue
their
spills
education.
over, exactly, impacts their education dramatically. You know, I mentioned Healthy KP, and in the time remaining, I just want to put a couple of plugs in for things that we have going on. For people who may not be aware, there's a program called, or an exhibit called, Hidden in Plain Sight. It's run by the SAFE Coalition. The SAFE Coalition is encompassing of both our 3 communities, but also Franklin and Foxborough and some of the surrounding communities, and they're working to help keep people away from substance use and abuse, and to help people who are already involved with those areas to get treatment. And the Hidden in Plain Sight exhibit is basically a mock-up of a teenager bedroom. And they show you a number of different warning signs that families should be looking for if their children are using or abusing substances. So it's a great exhibit to see. It's very eye-opening for anybody, and they were able to put the exhibit on for us at our open house last week at the high school, actually 2 weeks ago, last week at the middle school for our 7th grade, and tonight is the Thursday night, October 10th, is the open house for 8th grade. So anyone in the community who hasn't seen that exhibit, even if you don't have a child in 8th grade, you're more than welcome to come to the middle school from 5:30 to 8:30 and see that exhibit. We've only got a couple of just seconds remaining here as we're wrapping up the time. Is there anything that you'd like to share with our viewers at home that maybe we haven't told them as yet? Anything come to mind? Anything happening at the schools that we want to make sure that they're all aware of?
No, I would just say I think it's been great partnering with all of you. It's been, I think, really enriched what we're able to do in Norfolk, and I think it's been served our students well as they age through the system. And I'm excited to continue that.
And I would just add, I think our communities are pleased to see the camaraderie that's happening, that we're working together.
Absolutely. I think we're stronger together, and I think that's very clear. And I know that I felt privileged to have the opportunity to work with all of you. I want to thank you for taking the time to meet with me today and to talk to our viewers at home. David Raish, Ingrid Alardi, Alan Cameron, Plainville, Norfolk, Rentham. So again, thank you for being here, and thank you to our viewers for watching, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Paul.